In a world devoid of emotionally driven Star Wars, I can't tell you how excited I was to finally revisit my old friend Jedi, a franchise created by EA to curb the ravenous hunger for essentially non-existent Star Wars games. Unless you play, that thing. And when Survivor finally released, I was really interested to see a lot of people saying that the story for this game sucks. So I had to jump in for myself, dig in, spend 20 hours playing the game, and find out what EA did right, what they did wrong. And for anybody watching, fair warning, spoilers ahead.
Perfect.
I was overjoyed, lighting up my saber and diving back into the seedy, dark, post-Order 66 world of Jedi. Everything felt familiar to the old game, at least starting out, but they were quickly able to incorporate new and kind of fresh ideas to let you know that this isn't just Fallen Order 2, this is Survivor. Cal feels stronger, more sure of himself, and more capable than before, and the dialogue on Coruscant lets you know that Cal has been on a multitude of adventures since we last saw him, and has forged a bunch of new friendships along the way. The game wastes no time in setting up the emotional tone of the entire experience, and I think that's loss. All of Cal's friends, with the exception of the new guy, Bode, are killed within the first 30 minutes of gameplay. Cal continues on the journey and is eventually reunited with the big three from the last game, Grease on Kobo, Marin and Seer on Jedha, and after some time, a sense of familiarity is returned to the game in the first act. Everyone feels more or less the same, with the exception of Seer, who for some reason just looks different? But it's at this point where the game kind of took a veer off course for me. Most of the first and second act of the game is completely overridden with content from the High Republic. If you're unfamiliar with the High Republic, don't worry, most people are. I found it oddly annoying, gritting, and I feel like it took me out of the experience just shoehorning in the High Republic content to this particular story when I feel like it just didn't make sense. This whole portion of the first act and second act kind of felt like a gigantic billboard. Like, please, buy the High Republic books.
Please clap.
I know that was probably not the intention, it certainly could have been, but it felt like a bit of a self-insert. Again, this is just my opinion, but huge dig at the game for the High Republic stuff. I wasn't a fan. If you felt like taking it on, there are a multitude of side quests all over Kobo, doing everything from planting a rooftop garden, taking bounties, you can even meet Boba Fett, riding creatures, and recruiting new employees for Grease's Cantina. I was super lame and just piled right through the story because I wanted to know if the High Republic was going to dominate the rest of the storyline, and to a degree, it's always there throughout the rest of the game.
No one's ever really gone.
But in the third act is when we really get to see Jedi Survivor start to flourish. After finally killing the High Republic character Dagan, the Wayfinder MacGuffin 2.0 needs to be fixed, so you take it back to Jedha for Eno Cordova to fix. Once Cordova is complete, all hell breaks loose. And big spoiler alert here, Bode is kind of a dick. Bode takes off with the Wayfinder 2.0, speeding off on a swoop bike. You get to chase him as Cal. AT-ATs are sacking the temple, headed for the front gate. You have AT-STs coming in and just loads upon loads of stormtroopers. And I actually really like this part. You get to play as Seer, which is fun. We're going to come back to that in a little bit here. But we even get a Darth Vader boss fight, which I think is awesome. They did a really good job of making him absolutely terrifying in the first game, but I did kind of want to fight him just to see if I could stack up to it. So Seer and Vader end up having a fight in the archives, and I got to tell you, it was one of my favorite boss battles of the game. Maybe I'm a little partial to Vader, but regardless, it was a lot of fun. And at the end of that boss fight, we get what I think Survivor really does best, and what I think Star Wars always does the best, and where it really shines, is getting emotionally driven character moments. You know, there's always been this aspect of Star Wars where there's all this stuff going on, there's a massive war, and then this tiny little dot in the middle of it, we're getting to hear their story, the emotions that they're feeling in this gigantic war. And I think that's what Star Wars really does well, and when it's the best. I know that's certainly why I love it. So, spoiler alert again, Cere dies. Personally, I think Vader probably would have wiped the floor with her in about 5 seconds. But it's a video game, so you gotta let it go. After all this occurs, we get a really cool level where Cal actually goes to an ISB base that I thought was an exceptionally well-designed level. It looked really cool, and it just screams Empire. I love it. And it's where we get the most important part of Cal's journey in the game. He actually embraces a little bit of his dark side. So something that's been building up throughout the entire game is him basically being tired, he's worn out, he's seeing all of his friends die, and it's becoming really hard to keep that exterior shell of a Jedi. And you can tell from the beginning all the way up to this point, his face changes, his mannerisms change. You can tell he's just tired, his optimism is fading. And it's really impactful. You layer on top of all that Cere was just killed, and it's winding up for an awesome big finale. You've got now basically a fully trained Jedi who's tapped into the dark. Obviously, he's savvy, he's been surviving, very skilled in combat, but he doesn't hold a candle to the women in this game. The women in this game are so ridiculously overpowered. It's a little ridiculous. It really makes Cal look like a little...
Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
I'll start with Cere, because you actually get to play as Cere. So during the siege on the temple on Jedha, you get to play as Cere. Cere's not as bad. She's got a force heal ability and basically one-shots any stormtrooper. I did kill an AT-ST and I think 4 shots with a lightsaber, which was pretty crazy. I understand kind of why they had to do that, because there was such a large influx of enemies. If you just did it with Cal's abilities, there was no way you were passing that level. So minor gripe there, nothing too crazy. Again, I do not understand the character design. But that's just me. But holy shit. Let's talk about Merrin. OP as fuck. It is ridiculous how powerful this character is. I mean, really, there is no need for Cal Kestis. If you just put Merrin as the main character for the game, she'd probably take out the Empire, take down the Death Star, kill Darth Vader. I mean, OP as fuck. Her abilities outweigh Cal so much it almost seems like a joke, and she has no qualms reminding you about that about every 30 seconds in the game. Snarky, impetuous, overpowered. I was not a fan of Merrin in this game, and I know somebody who's going to be really mad at me right now, but I'm sorry. I just did not like Merrin in this game at all. Oh boy, the gameplay. Where do we start? Well, this game feels like the saber play is worlds above Fallen Order. It's fluid, it's fun, it's frustrating, and it's just challenging enough to keep your fingers cramped and your timing on point. The boss difficulty was fun, but it did fall into somewhat of a repetitive 1-stage cinematic, 2-stage cinematic, 3-stage cinematic, which was a little irritating, but you know, it was challenging enough that it kept you pissed off, which I think is great for any boss battle. The enemy variety in the game was great. You know, for all the different planets, you had different variety of enemies. Obviously, we had some returning favorites and then some new ones as well. The beasts were great. We got to fight Wampas. That's always awesome. I adored slaying ISB officers. I don't know why that one just kind of struck a chord with me, but I really enjoyed it. And then obviously customization for this game was at an all-time high. There is a nauseating amount of customization for the lightsaber. I don't remember what the statistic was, but you could never, if you spent the rest of your life customizing the lightsaber in Survivor, you would never finish. You'd be dead before you had done every single variation of lightsaber. And then you have the blaster, Cal himself, and BD-1 that can all be customized. What I thought was really interesting was that they didn't incorporate customizing the Mantis again, which was odd because we did have that in the first game. And because of all these different customization options, the hidden collectible portion of this game is at its peak. Even Bethesda game players will be satisfied with the amount of hidden collectibles in this game. So while the gameplay itself was fun, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, bugs, glitches, and crashes, because I experienced every single one of them, and I experienced multiple of each. As a PC player, I feel like I've been getting fucked at every turn recently. Hogwarts Legacy was the last offender, and Survivor was no exception. Actually, it was worse. It was way worse. Buggy lighting, textures not rendering, glitchy frame rates in high asset areas and in low asset areas, severe shading issues, and of course, crashes. I was able to run Hogwarts Legacy on Ultra with minimal issues, but was encountering frame drops and glitches and bugs with Survivor on low. I understand it can be difficult to make PC games that fit every spec, but this was straight up nonsense. But for me, all in all, the game was playable, so there's that. So after the long journey, we finally wind up with an emotional kind of Return of the Jedi style ending to the game. Cal is cremating his friends, looking off into the distance and learning to cope with death, loss, and being unsure of who you are. The planet Tanalorr is more than likely going to be the home base for the next set of adventures, and where Cal goes from there is honestly kind of open-ended, and I really like that. All in all, Jedi Survivor wound up being a more mature, less whimsical, for the most part, grounded story. It tackled adult themes like death and loss and parentage and finding out who you are and what you believe when your morals are questioned, justifying killing somebody that you really don't want to, and the effect that can have on people around you and yourself. So while the game may not be for everybody, and I certainly have problems with it, I'd say all in all, it was a good game. It's worth the play. Go pick it up and have your own adventure.